Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Saturday, June 7th, 2025, and Polyev is remembering D-Day among wishing well for Eid, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But the D-Day stuff, I view the Second World War and the history of the Second World War very, very differently than I did 5 years ago, and I think that it's interesting. I just think that it's all very interesting, the rhetoric around wars these days. And are we being prepped for something? I don't know, man. It's a whole, because it's very different than it was even in 2017, 18, 19. They were trying to diminish things, and now it's kind of being brought to the forefront, which I think is interesting. Every man and his dog is talking about Eid, and we'll talk about Muslims don't like dogs, but that was just a happenstance. I didn't mean to, but it's funny because why they're more enthusiastic about Eid than they are about Christmas. Everybody's got something about Eid way more than Christmas. So it's very, very interesting to watch all of this happen. And I think that has to do with WEF and influence and the ongoing invasion and replacement happening in Canada, which is wild. Carney is fixing the relationship with China, apparently, and I thought I had a tab about Trump doing that the same, but I talked about that yesterday. I digress. Debt Ponzi scheme explained. So there's somebody talking about how when debt is how you create money, you're always playing catch up and you can never catch up, and that's part of the system. It's a feature, not a bug, and I found it interesting. So I like when things are explained in bite-sized pieces, and I'll share that with you. Have you ever been to Santa's Village? And that is, of course, a theme park in Northern Ontario that it was we had a cottage when I was growing up in Wabashine, and my family still owns that cottage, but not my family, but like within my family. And we used to go up to Wabashine, and then we went to Santa's Village 1 year, 2 years, or something like that. And fond memories, but I don't remember it being as like robust as Canada's Wonderland. Well, apparently new owners have taken over and things are changing in Santa's Village. So holy smokeronies, we'll talk about that later in the show. And one Canadian economy, unless you don't want to, unless you want to veto pipelines or whatever, right, Quebec? So it's a very interesting half measure that's not going to work. And Carney is worse than Trudeau, but everybody knew that already. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, I want to talk about the WEF. We have to look at all of our politicians who are talking about Eid and what I think that means, because I think it does mean something. Kash Patel was talking about Epstein, the Epstein files, and we got to talk about that. And man, I want to get to the end of our grab bag of governance before the end of the free show, but I don't know. There's a lot of tabs, so I don't know if we're going to do it. So first, we're going to talk about what's really going on. What's really going on with this Elon Musk-Trump fight? Some people think that they're trying to distract from the Palantir stuff, which is an AI surveillance grid being erected all around us, and people don't notice it yet. Or if they do notice it, they just want to fight about that and not fight about the erection of the grid. And so it's very interesting. This guy kind of breaks it down. 2 minutes. I think it's worthwhile. He says, if you've been wondering what's going on, here we go.
If you've been tracking this Palantir National Database story that started breaking a few days ago, you may have realized that the militarization of the police and surveillance state, which has steadily been increasing since its inception in the 19th century, is the housing crisis plan, the climate displacement plan, the next COVID pandemic plan, the healthcare plan, the you criticized Israel plan, the political dissent plan, and the I can't pay for anything plan. These billionaires who control our government know what's going to happen. They're not stupid. They're building bunkers, buying private islands, employing more and more ex-special ops dudes, because in the event of a mass uprising, we all know from history that there are never enough soldiers and never enough cops. These databases and their associated predictive algorithms are force multipliers based on the material conditions of a region. Where are the hot spots for rebellion? Excellent. We shall increase police presence in that area by 25%. Real ID, enforcement, surveillance, stable coins, AI biometric entry exit systems, Palantir building this massive database, FedEx trucks with equipped license plate readers, ICE using facial recognition to monitor online dissent. 2025, directed by George Orwell. And you didn't think these oligarchs don't agonize over all this shit? They know what they're doing. They know how people may eventually respond. And in the end, all this is happening because they're scared of the consequences of being global robber barons, and they want everything. And the Democrats won't save you. Just look at what Hakeem Jeffries said. But anyways, if you want to go do a deep dive into how we got here, what exactly Palantir is doing, how they track and monitor.
He promotes his podcast there, but I think that it's interesting. All of the scale of all of this. It could have been the beginning of that that song "We Didn't Start the Fire," right? Right, like it could have been another one. Fall Out Boy. Well, who's the other guy who does that one? I can't remember. But these songs are based in real crap going on that people noticed, and it hasn't changed. It's just morphed. It's just evolved, and we are bearing the consequences of all of that. Ralph says, let me be clear, they're talking about cultural nationalism, meaning even someone who is open to immigration but believes that newcomers should adopt British manners and values is probably a terrorist. Absolute madness. So concerns over mass migration is terrorist ideology, says Prevent. So Prevent was stood up as a response to Islamic terrorism, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. I want to show you the document. Radio Genoa says, concern about mass migration is a terrorist ideology that requires government intervention. Truly incredible. The UK is lost. Oh, they're just showing us where we're going, everybody. I don't want to be right about this, but this is where they want to take the world, okay? So this is Prevent Duty Training, says cultural nationalism. It says terrorist ideologies, extreme right wing. We define extreme right-wing terrorism as the active or vocal support of ideologies that advocate discrimination or violence against minority groups. The three most common subcategories of extreme right-wing terrorist ideologies and their narratives are cultural nationalism. Western culture is under threat from mass migration and a lack of integration by certain ethnic and cultural groups. Well, that's just plain fact. So, I mean, if you believe this fact, you're a right-wing terrorist. So you're welcome, says the United Kingdom. Very crazy, crazy stuff. Paul says the Daily Telegraph is reporting that the government's anti-terrorism prevent program has designated cultural nationalism as an extreme right-wing terror ideology, which may require an individual to be referred to de-radicalization. Mind-blowing. So obviously de-radicalization is like from that scene in A Clockwork Orange where they take that guy and they pin his eyes open and they make him, and they feed him that medicine that makes him sick, and then they make him watch all that violent stuff, and then by doing that they condition him to have a physically ill response if he thinks of violent things, which, I mean, obviously, right? So wait for it, right? We're all going to be we're all going to be referred for de-radicalization. Would you like to know more? Adrian says, it's extraordinary how Prevent, which was formed in 2006 in response to Islamic terrorism, has morphed into a strategy for suppressing debate and discussion around mass immigration and concerns over the potential influx of Islamists, misogynists, and other alien extremists. So this has always been the way. I mean, in response to the 2001 terror attacks and the Twin Towers being obviously like a controlled demolition that obviously was definitely done by an airplane. In response, the United States went full bore into a war with the Middle East, Iraq, and so on, the war on terror, right? And then started bringing in people into the United States, mass immigration of Middle Eastern people. Why? And then, I mean, look at Dearborn, Michigan. Look at all sorts of, there are hotspots of Islamic culture in the United States. There's a place in Texas that they want to build a whole Liberty City or something like that. Is that what it's called? And it's supposed to be Muslim as well. So it's a really, really strange thing. And the inversion is, yeah, we don't like these people, and now we'll let them run the government. Oh, okay. Weird response to that controlled demolition of a building. Jackie is talking about the UK's implementation or slow rollout of a digital ID. This is what it could look like, the Brit Card wallet. And it says James William has a right to work because he's permanent. So look at that green check mark you get if you're a permanent resident and you have a right to work. Do you have a right to rent? Yep, he's permanent, right? Ooh, permanent. And it shows your driver's license, age, over 18, share my age, right? All this stuff is absolutely draconian is not the right word. It's not good. It's very, very concerning. Say no to digital ID, says Jackie. Carl says the Brit Card digital ID, also known as the end of your privacy and sovereignty. Yes, it will be the end of your freedom. It's a slavery device. That's what it is. Here is Eva, and she says democracy is dead. And like that guy in Men in Black, like the Edgar suit, we are being fooled into thinking democracy is still alive, but it's not. It's dead as a doornail. Here we go.
Democracy is dead. Stone cold dead. The illusion of democracy is very much kept alive. We are being ruled by leaders who claim that they are democratic leaders, and they force us to play along with their games. In fact, many people do so happily. And that is what makes modern-day tyranny arguably worse than what we see in the history books. In the DDR, you at least knew that the government was listening in on you. In the USSR, you at least knew that going against the government could end you in the gulags. In Mao Zedong's China, going against the government was something that surely would have you met with violence. But make no mistake, being a dissident now is just as dangerous as it was back then. Our regime uses pretty words to hide their intentions, but they pervert and invert our definitions all the time. They say that to maintain peace in Europe, we need to go to war with Russia. They say that to protect democracy, we have to ban right-wing parties. And they say that to safeguard freedom of speech, they need to censor disinformation. Just like in Orwell's 1984, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength.
Scary stuff, and that's where we're at, right? Kirk says, do people realize how insane and transformative to Canada the Liberals' Bill C-3 is? Bill C-3 gives citizenship to lost Canadians, except that there's nothing Canadian about it, and it only requires people to have 3 years association with Canada. There are over 4 million Canadians living abroad. Canada has been giving out citizenship with a Happy Meal. Now, many of these, quote, Canadians who couldn't care less about living in Canada can have kids abroad, and they get a parachute passport to Canada to abuse the system they don't contribute to and never have. Many of these are Muslim and African countries and have 5+ kids, and now all of them will become Canadian citizens. The Liberals are adding 10 million new citizens from third world countries who have never contributed to Canada and are now taxpayers' liability. So awesome. And isn't that cultural nationalism? Ooh, if you were in the UK, maybe you would have to be referred for de-radicalization. Scary stuff. Here's Mark Carney, and they're all pandering to Muslims and Eid, and it's very, very interesting. At this point in time, I believe Muslims are 5% or less than the population of Canada, and wow, listen to what Mark Carney says. We'll listen to about a minute.
This is a special day, and the message of Eid resonates in this room, across this city, and I may say it should resonate with all Canadians.
Togir says, when did slavery, child marriage, and gang rape become Canadian values? Great question.
It's a story that some of us hear with slightly different nomenclature, whether the prophet is called Ibrahim or Abraham.
This is for people who don't really believe strongly in their religion. I think that people who do believe strongly in their religion would find offense in the comparison here. Right? But people who are kind of agnostic, don't go to church very often, believe, but, don't talk about it very often, don't get into conversations very often. I would have fallen into this category a few years ago, I think. But although I thought about it more than I think most, but I think, and I could be wrong about this, but I think that it's quite insulting what he's implying here.
Ishmael or Isaac, the lessons and values of Eid are the same.
Boiling it down to that is kind of, right? It's not accurate.
Canada, our Canada, is a diverse country, proud home to different languages, different beliefs, different cultures. Those are differences that make us unique and make us strong.
No, I don't think so. I don't want to listen to the rest of Mark Carney. He's grating on me already. It's like listening to Justin Trudeau. Here's Pierre Poilievre. He says, as Muslims across Canada mark Eid al-Adha, whatever, we reflect on the values of faith, sacrifice, and community. To all celebrating, I wish you a joyful and peaceful holiday. Everybody is pretty well pissed off with this response to Pierre Poilievre. Canadian Grey Man says, this is Toronto, and this is where Muslims are blocking streets to pray, and this is a show of force. This is a show of power. This is not kumbaya, let's live together in peace and harmony, and everybody go about their business privately and quietly. at all, right? Like this isn't Canadian values, right? You don't see Christians standing out there blocking streets, right? That's not what happens. This is a show of dominance, says Gray Man, and defiance against all Canadians. Things are going to erupt if this is left to run its course. Yeah. Archer says traitor to Canada and to the Canadian people. Aaron says Islam is incompatible with Canada and Western culture. I've read the Quran. Have you, Pierre? No, that explains why you support this death cult. Dude, when you look around and ask, why did we lose again? Remember this post. I'm done with CPC. And there's a whole bunch more just like that, right? And so a lot of people, here's a bunch of people that Pierre Poilievre supports burning the Canadian flag. So yay, right? Super good. Why? Why does everybody and their dog feel like it's important? The mayor of Guelph did the same post. MPs, I'm sure Doug Ford did the same post. All of them, they're all doing this post. Why? What's going on with that? The guy smoking a J says this is what infiltration looks like. Yeah, could be one reason. He's talking about Pierre Poilievre's post. And Danielle Smith says, wishing everyone in Alberta's Muslim community a joyful and blessed Eid al-Adha, whatever it is. May this holiday be filled with peace, generosity, and a time spent with loved ones. And Grok, what percentage of Alberta's population is Muslim? 5.2%, right? So everybody and their dog is pandering to this less than 5% and federally less than 5% population. Why? What's going on here, right? It's a very interesting thing. And as I said, it's bigger than Christmas. Gareth is British, I think. Garish, or maybe not. I thought he was British. He says, am I alone in not caring about Eid? I never voted for immigration. I never agreed to it. I never wanted it. I still cannot see how it's improved the lives of the English people. In fact, I think that it has worsened their lives in so many ways. Who cares about Eid, right? And it's the same thing in England. Okay, so this guy's a leader of the Liberal Democrats in the United Kingdom, and he's an MP for Kingston and whatever. And he says, wishing Muslims in the UK and around the world a joyful Eid and celebrations with the people you love. Everybody. The point I'm trying to make here is from the Prime Minister in Canada to MPs in the United Kingdom, the official opposition, the premiers, all across the board, mayors and everybody else, they're all kowtowing to this group. Why? What's going on? And I mean, obviously, I know why. But what's up with that, yo? Like, is that not weird to, I don't know, you run-of-the-mill Canadian, right? Eid is just like Christianity. We all believe in the same thing. Kumbaya, right? Except we don't stone women, right? Like, ooh, right? We don't throw people off rooftops for their sexual preference. Oh, right. Okay. So, right, like there's a difference. There's a difference. So it's weird that everybody's like, oh, what do you mean there's a difference? See no evil. I can't see anything wrong. Happy Christmas, Eid, or whatever. Here is CBC. This is from yesterday. Wound is opened up again after an exam. Features controversial Charlie Hebdo cover. Says Muslim community leader. Manitoba Education Department redacted exam section that included a caricature of Muhammad and then made the test optional. I'm sorry that we've harmed you. How does this help anybody, right? Get tough. The world doesn't get easier. You get tougher. That's what you have to do. Holy smokeronis, right? Like we are in a bad way when everybody's tripping and falling all over themselves. And then Christmas, it's like pulling teeth. Like they bury the Christmas post at like midnight on Christmas Eve and then 6 a.m. on Christmas Day. And then that's it. No more talking about Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody. Ooh, merry holiday time, right? No Christmas for you, right? No Mary and Joseph, no Bible, nothing, right? No, none of that. No, we all share the same values and all of our values are great and, Merry Christmas and it's the joy of giving and all the rest of that crap. None of that, right? Just Merry Christmas. Very quick. Actually, usually it's Happy Holidays, right? And an embarrassed post, right? None of this like long conversations in front of people and stuff. Holy smoke. The Vigilant Fox, let's talk about Epstein files because they're gone, yo. They're gone. They're never, ever seeing the light of day. I've talked about this before. I said, man, they have to do an investigation in order to release any of the people's names on these lists and so on and so forth. They can't just release the list because if they release the list, that's going to cause some huge problems and give a lot of people who may be very bad people the ability to wiggle out of their charges, right? If there are charges, if the list is released, if they say, well, that is erroneous. I was never there, right? And so then you have to prove it and you have to have an investigation and so on and so forth. So I've got a couple of videos to show you. Pam Bondi this is a little while ago. We have to start here. Pam Bondi a little while ago said in response to, is it true that all of the Epstein videos and evidence have been destroyed? around. They're lost or they're gone. For some reason, they're just gone. And she laughs and says, they're with the FBI, right? And Theo, if you need a miracle, I give you the FBI, right? So they're gone. It's gone. It's gone. Poof, gone. Who knows? But she laughs and says, no, the FBI's got it. Don't worry about it. Here we go.
You said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. Can you confirm that?
He says, it's hard to hear. He says, James Comey said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. Do you have anything to say to that?
No, the FBI, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of
tens of thousands of videos of children or child porn.
Victims. And
hundreds of victims.
No one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him.
Okay, right? Okay. So here's Kash Patel on Joe Rogan yesterday. Thousands of videos of child porn. Thousands of videos of child porn. Hundreds of victims. Okay? Where's those Epstein files, Kash Patel, FBI director, to the stars, who was absolutely, everybody was enthusiastic that this guy was going to get it done, right?
Again, we're going to give you everything we can, and people have to remember, we're not going to re-victimize women. We're not going to put that shit back out there. It's not happening, because then he wins. Not doing it.
Didn't say children.
For it, fine. Again, logical play out. If there was a video of some guy or gal committing felonies on an island, and I'm in charge, don't you think you'd see it?
If you have access to it.
If I have it. Period.
Right.
If I have it.
So
where else would it be?
Right. If you have it.
Right.
But you can't say that you have it.
No, we're giving you everything we have.
So far.
Everything we have so far is
Have
the
you guys
universe.
gone over all the video that's available?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. That's what takes so much damn time.
Right.
And
is there video from the island?
not of what you want. The people out there
What does Joe want?
have filled the void
people out
with,
there
can't wait to see X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Hold on. Pam Bondi, what kind of videos are there? What kind of videos are there?
FBI, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims.
Okay. And what? And Kash Patel, what?
Right.
And
is there video from the island?
not of what you want. The people out there have filled the void with can't wait to see X, Y, or Z.
Right. Speculation.
And
Is this speculation?
Children or child porn.
I don't think so. How dare you fill our heads with speculation, Pam Bondi? Didn't you know that telling everybody there was child porn and thousands of videos of child porn would be irresponsible? Because Kash Patel wants the women to be protected. We're not going to re-victimize those women, okay? Child porn women, ooh, man, I feel manipulated. I feel a little icky about this whole thing. So it's never going to see the light of day. I'm sorry, everybody. I wish I was wrong about all this. These are just posts that I was using. Breaking FBI Director Kash Patel says some Epstein files likely destroyed, and after combing through files, no significant bombshells exist. So Pam Bondi was making up the child porn. So nothing to see here, everybody. No significant bombshells exists. Nothing that you want to see, Joe. Right? So, how dare your speculation overshadow our real investigation of child porn that doesn't exist? It's weird. So what do you guys think about all that? I feel like I don't know whose fault this is. I don't know if this is Trump's fault. I don't know if this is Kash Patel's fault. I don't know if it's Pam Bondi's fault. There was one more clip talking about how James Comey had a secret room, and a whole bunch of evidence was in the secret room. But there was a whole bunch of other stuff they talked about. But the more they talked about stuff, the more I felt like Kash Patel wasn't being honest with people, wasn't being honest with me. And the silence between Joe Rogan and Kash Patel during that exchange with, have you given us everything? Have you seen all the videos? Yeah, we saw all the videos and there wasn't anything in it. Well, not what you want. That interaction in and of itself was enough for me. I was like, nope, I'm going to be less informed than I was after watching this because this guy's a liar. He's lying. So the Epstein files, we're never going to see the light of day. Never. And what comes next? I don't know, man. Like I've been saying the last couple of days, fog of war is pretty crazy, and it is obfuscating being able to see anything. So let's talk about the money in Canada. And Peter says Mark Carney just announced his One Canadian Economy bill. Very first question from the media. If there's a pipeline that's in the national interest, but there's a province that doesn't agree, will you impose it? Carney says no, simply no. We must have the consensus of all of the provinces and the Indigenous people. If a province doesn't want it, it's impossible. It's not the choice of the federal government. Oh man, shucks, we can't do a pipeline, guys, because Quebec and BC said no. So it's not the federal government tried. We tried, and unfortunately, there's just not a consensus these days. You can't have a consensus for anything. Like an election is won in Canada with 30% of the vote. Consensus, that's hardly a consensus. Right? Like 1 in 3 people agree. This is not something that is consensus at all. And so if it's in the national interest, are you going to oppose it? No way. Nope. Absolutely not. And so One Canadian Economy up in flames before it's even started. Peter again says, we already looked at that one. Darn it. Here is Keith. He says Carney's One Canadian Economy bill gives every province a veto. In 1855, it would have killed McDonald's CPR railway dream. Ottawa's ideological overreach stifles projects, drives investors away, and dims our kids' futures. Yeah. Yes, the idiocy of actually, I don't think it's idiocy. I say that a lot, but I don't think it's idiocy. And I don't think James Lindsay's an idiot per se. But these people are ideological and they're calculated, and they'll say whatever they want to move their ideology forward, regardless of if it's true or if it's not true or if it's a little gray. And so, yeah, I don't necessarily think they're idiots, but it's a short form. It's a short form that I use, and I probably should get away from it. Freedom Fighter says, One Canadian Economy, but any province can opt out. What a joke Canada has become. Yes. Steve TV says, the NDP EB in BC says no. Quebec says no. So much for Team Canada and elbows up. We're right back to square one as Trump eats our lunch. Nothing materially has changed since February. Nothing at all. The structure of the government, how the government works, and the One Canadian Economy, being able to move interprovincially, trade interprovincially, all of that stuff, supply management, cost of goods, everything is up. Nothing is fixed. The government is ridiculous as usual, and people are trying to make the case that Canadians are happy with this outcome, that people are satisfied with the job Mark Carney's doing. I've seen reports that Mark Carney's approval ratings are like 46%, so he's doing a good job, which is nonsense. Absolute, utter nonsense. And I understand better as well. In 2008, after the crisis in 2008, the financial crisis that was caused by the big banks, people would say the same things about Obama. And I worked in a different industry at the time, and I didn't understand business very well at the time. And I couldn't see what they were talking about because of working in like children's mental health is not finance, and the economy doesn't really matter when the government is just funding where you work, right? So it's one of those things that I didn't have a really good understanding, but people use the same criticism of Obama. And it was the press that created this facade of, no big scandals during the Obama years, but there were big scandals. They were just completely ignored and put under the rug. And that's not good for transparency, for solving problems. But we're being told, despite the fact that we have exactly the same configuration in government as in February when everybody wanted a change, we're being told everybody's really happy with what's going on and change is right there and we're definitely having change, when really materially nothing has changed. It's very, very evil. It's evil. Canada Proud says Canada's unemployment rates rise to 7%, the third consecutive rise in a row, as the population growth continues to outpace the growth in employment. Yeah, so it's not even the same. It's worse than it was. And there doesn't appear to be an end in sight because, well, I mean, they've got a de facto majority and nobody wants an election right now. They're not even voting on confidence votes. They're doing it on decision on, no, it's something else, but I'm not going to think about it for now. And Michelle Rempel says Canada's unemployment hits 7%. TD predicts 100,000 job losses by fall. Liberals issue 500,000 student visas and 191 temporary foreign work permits last year, and have roughly 300,000 pending asylum claims, about the same size as Ottawa. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff. And we are not in a situation to rectify any of these problems, but all we're going to do is race-based grants for Black-owned businesses. Hey, Black-owned businesses, you guys want a loan? Shouldn't predatory lending by governments be like illegal or something like that? Here's a program to get you on your feet and start a business that you want to start. Oh, now you're on the hook for all this money that we loaned you to start your business. Isn't that bad? And further, isn't it bad to tie loans to people's skin color? Can you imagine if you had white-only loans? Oh, sorry, we'd give you this loan, except, ooh, you're very black, so you don't qualify on that white skin color thing. But that's exactly what happens if you're white and say, hey, I'd like to start a business and I need some money to start the business. And can I have some money to start the business? And they say, oh, shucks, darn. You qualify for everything except for this is black portion. So do you have any black friends you want to support doing your business? I don't know. It's ridiculous. It's racist. It should be illegal. I think it is illegal. But Juno News is reporting Manitoba's NDP government is launching a taxpayer-funded business grant program exclusively for black entrepreneurs, people who identify as black. Loophole. I'm as black as they come. What are you talking about? Hold on. I'll be right back. When I was a kid, I watched The Jolson Story and Jolson Sings Again. And one part of The Jolson Story is that he used to go and hang out with the black musicians, the blues musicians. And so that's why he changed music the way he did. But he used to wear blackface. And my mom who loved Al Jolson and was the one who watched those movies with us. And I love musicals. Like I'll watch a musical all day long. Said, oh, it's just what they did back then. Don't worry about it. It was very normalized to like my family, right? People, we'd look at, like we'd watch movies like that. And my mom was like, oh, don't worry. That's just the time. You know, you just got to judge it by the standards of the time. And I mean, I don't disagree with that. But doing this kind of crap is very racist. And we should not allow this stuff to continue because it's harming Canadians, right? Black Canadians, white Canadians, all the colors of Canadians. Gov.exe says Mark Carney says he engaged in dialogue on trade with the Chinese Prime Minister to repair relations between our country and theirs. Does anyone else find it insane how our governments would rather do business with China than the United States? Yeah, but I understand why. The globalists are at war with Donald Trump, and Canada is run by globalists. So Canada is going to do everything they can to damage the United States and Donald Trump while Donald Trump's in charge of the United States. And then once the globalists take over the United States again, Canada will be something to take advantage of, flood, and basically trade away. You know, like we're an extra padding. You could come and have some softwood business here. You could come and have a trucking industry if you want. You know, like, I don't know, go take Canada. It's fine. You could come and buy all the mines. You could have some gold mines. I'm sure we've got silver mines or nickel mines that we could sell you and give you, you know, just for fun, just to screw the Canadian people. So like the globalists, once they have all of North America again, they just start carving it up for their friends. And until they have North America, they fight for it. And we're in a war configuration. And so bad things happen. The stuff that's been happening happens. We continue to flood people in. They continue to use our country as a staging ground to attack the United States. They continue to use our country as a staging ground to make fentanyl. They flood our country with fentanyl as a byproduct of attacking the United States with fentanyl. And that's the war that I'm talking about. It's very, very present. It's very, very here, and nobody wants to talk about it because they're the generals on the side of the globalists. They're fighting it against us. They're keeping Canada in the game for the globalists, and they're keeping the globalists in positions to forward positions to advance their fentanyl and advance their invasion. That's what Canada has become at this point in time, and nobody's fixing that. Poilievre's not fixing that. Carney's not fixing that. They're in on the game, and they're allowing it to continue because, oh, well, it's very, very difficult to stop this stuff. Oh, yeah, sure, when you're getting kickbacks from it. Definitely. Really, really difficult when you're getting kickbacks from it. My gosh, I'm going to have to cut it off right here. We're not going to be able to do the grab bag of governance. I'm going to have to finish the stream right at the end of this series of tabs, but I promise it's a lot more fun show coming. Jeff says, how usury breaks capitalism, a thread. Imagine a simple economy with $100 total in circulation. But there's a catch. All the money is created by bank loans at 3% interest. Every dollar exists because someone borrowed it. That means the total debt is $100, but the total owed is $103. Where will the extra $3 come from? It doesn't exist. The economy only contains $100. So how do borrowers pay the interest? Someone must borrow more money to introduce those extra dollars into the system. This works temporarily, but now the debt is larger and the interest grows too. This is a trap. The only way to pay old interest is to create new debt, but new debt also brings more interest. It's like using a credit card to pay the minimum on another. The system enters an infinite loop of borrowing. To survive, the economy must constantly expand debt. This is how the real world works. Credit growth fuels the economy. We live in a debt-based economy, not an asset-based economy. Scale it up. Businesses borrow to invest, consumers borrow to live, governments borrow to plug gaps. When private debt grows, spending rises. When it stops, demand collapses. Here's the real formula economists ignore. Aggregated demand equals income plus change in debt. When debt rises, demand booms. When debt slows or shrinks, demand crashes. Hyman Minsky saw this coming. He described how stability is destabilizing. Over time, borrowers shift from hedge, they can pay the interest in principal. Speculative, they can only pay the interest. Ponzi, they must now borrow to pay the interest. The Ponzi scheme is what I'm trying to point at here. I think that fundamentally, our economy is a Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme needs constant expansion, more people buying into the scheme to stay afloat. If more people don't buy into the scheme, then the Ponzi scheme collapses and investors are left holding the bag. They're left with negative $100,000 or whatever they invested, expecting to make 2 or 3 times their money. Now they made nothing. Canada would be left holding the bag with all of the money we invested in the Ponzi scheme equaling nothing, right? And so if they stop the immigration, our entire financial system collapses. I think that's the trap we're in. I think that's fundamentally where we're at. And when these politicians walk in and say, I'm going to fix it, they get told, if you fix it, your entire economy is going to collapse. The whole thing, everything is going to collapse down to zero. You're going to lose power. People are going to starve. It's better to do it this way. And then they go, and they're not smart because they're politicians and they've never actually had to actually do things most of the time, the leadership anyway. So they don't have an idea of how to fix it. And politicians who do have an idea of how to fix it are removed, like Trump, maybe like Nixon, and other examples that I can't think of off the top of my head at this point in time. But I think the Ponzi scheme is one linchpin in the plan. Jeff says, in the Ponzi phase, default is inevitable. Any slowing of lending equals collapse. This is not a fluke. It's baked into a system where money is created as interest-bearing debt. Back to our $100 economy. If no one takes on more debt, then there's no way to pay the $3 interest. So people default, businesses fail, and the economy crashes. This is why debt drives the business cycle. Boom, debt accelerates. Bust, debt slows or contracts. Demand falls off a cliff, just like in 2008, just like in 1929. No matter how productive the economy is, you can't pay interest on the total money supply unless new money is created. That means perpetual debt expansion is a requirement. You need it. Eventually, debt outpaces income. People stop borrowing, defaults rise, the whole structure tips over. This is the heart of Minsky's financial instability hypothesis. The modern economy is a treadmill powered by credit. To stay upright, you have to keep running. The moment you slow down, even a little, you fall. Debt-based money demands infinite growth. And here's the paradox. Interest creates a permanent shortage of money. You can borrow more, you can inflate bubbles, you can paper over it, but you can't solve it from within the system. The only real way out is end interest-based money creation, use public debt-free money, or accept permanent crisis cycles as normal. Until then, every boom carries its own collapse inside it. Australian school and neoclassical economists get this wrong because they start with assumptions that rule out the very instability we're trying to explain. So neoclassical theory assumes the economy trends towards equilibrium. They believe that interest rates naturally balance savings and investment. If everyone just acts rationally, they say, markets markets clear and there's no systemic crisis. But this ignores how money is actually created. They treat money like a neutral veil, just a way to facilitate barter. They don't model how debt expands and contracts, and they can ignore how credit fuels demand. In the real world, banks don't lend existing savings. They create new money when they make loans. So investment isn't constrained by prior saving. It's driven by credit creation. This destroys the neoclassical story. You can't say interest rates clear the market for savings and investment if the supply of money is being created dynamically by banks issuing loans. The Austrian school sees this problem but misdiagnoses it, and so on and so forth. But I think that's a good overview, and I think that it is a good kind of discussion of where we're at. And if we went back to the country printing its own public money with no debt instead of a central bank that lends money to the government at a debt rate, we'd be in a better way, honestly, I think. But they're never going to let that happen. And here's Franco Tetrazzino. He says, interest charges on the debt will cost taxpayers $50 billion this year. If debt interest charges were its own federal department, it would be the third largest. How long until it's the biggest? Not long. And that's exactly within what this guy's talking about. That's exactly what's happening, right? He's describing this. He just boiled it down to a $100 economy. But if you can't create more money to service the debt, then everything breaks, everything fails, right? So that's the crisis we're currently in. And it's going to cost us $50 billion this year with a B, right? So here's Mark Carney. He says, Ryan says, Carney just made our already bloated government even larger. There's now a federal project office who oversees national building projects within a minimum of 2 years if all conditions are met. How often will that happen? Never. It's never going to happen. The other thing about this is this resets all of the projects. If a project was like 4 years into a 7-year, whatever it is, right? This resets it back to zero. And so we're all waiting 2 years. And then in 2 years, when we don't have any pipelines built or any meaningful progress on this, we're going to get word salad bullshit as the answer as to why. And oh my gosh, 40 minutes already. Oh my cow. We're going to get word salad as the response, and we won't get any answers. And then they'll say, Canadians love the job we've been doing. They love it. Absolutely love it. And then we'll move on because we can't hold anybody accountable. We haven't been able to up to this point. Goodness gracious. Thanks for watching on the stream, everybody. Show note for tomorrow. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do a show tomorrow. I have a tournament and we have to leave early, and then we're going to be gone all day. So I don't know. And there's not going to be a kitchen table talk tomorrow. I thought there was going to be, but there is not going to be. So apologies about that as well. It's tournament season, I guess, so things may be changing. I may have to change the day of the kitchen table talks to make it more consistent. So kitchen table talk people, reach out and let me know what days are good and times, et cetera, et cetera. And so thanks for everybody watching on the stream, and we'll catch you. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful